White Hart Lane. It's had more than a few days and nights of glory, and Tottenham through the years have been renowned for the skill and craft and the sheer excitement that their players have generated. Now Terry Venables, a boyhood fan, Spurs player, now their manager, has the near impossible task of picking the greatest ever team of individuals to wear Tottenham's famous white shirts.
Peters has gone on the outside again. Beautifully played for him, and he is completely free. Chivers! Oh, a magnificent goal! Superbly created. Kinnear back to Pearce again. Low and Harkins! Oh, what a goal by Greaves! And they're very intelligently spreading this game out as wide as they can. Now it's Knowles turning it in. Oh, Gilzean! 2-2! What a goal by Gilzean! Spurs, one or two crises yet to face, I fancy, as Mills plays that one in towards Beattie. The header's there. The header's right there. Beattie! Oh, and somehow Jennings saved it. How on earth did the man do it? Mary Lloyd underneath this one, but beaten in the air by Jones. Armstrong's coming in there. Oh, a tremendous goal by Huddle. And Shilton really had no chance whatsoever. Chris Ronald looking to get to the byline. And he scored. Gascoigne with the corner. Made in early there towards Lineker. His first goal for Tottenham.
Well, it's nigh on impossible to actually pick a team, especially one that's going to satisfy everybody, because we go back a long time. We go back through a lot of great teams, and funny enough, I was a Spurs supporter as a youngster. I came here for many games, saw my first football match here, and then at school I was able to get a pass to sit right on the front, you know, and the mere fact that the players come so close to the touchline and you almost could touch them from there, it was quite fantastic. And I don't think over the years, well, most teams have been disappointed over the years, but the highs have been very high for Tottenham. Even when they've not been winning things, they've always played a quality brand of football, and I think that's what we've got to go for in this team. We've got to look for favourites, of course, of mine, and also the quality of football that we would get from that team through to the public.
Well, first we look then at the candidates for 3 striking positions in this greatest ever Tottenham team. 2 central, 1 winger. From the early days of Vivian Woodward through to Les Bennett, Sonny Walters and Len Dukeman in the immediate post-war years. And then on to the likes of Bobby Smith and Terry Dyson, Cliff Jones, Jimmy Greaves, naturally, Martin Chivers and Alan Gilzean. And then as we come a little nearer to the present day, the likes of Garth Crooks and Steve Archibald. Clive Allen, of course, Chris Waddle's in there too, and right up to the present day, Paul Stewart and Gary Lineker.
I think we've got to talk about some of the old-timers, obviously players that I haven't seen, players that I've been told about, and great goal scorers. People like Vivian Woodward, Jimmy Dimmock, Fanny Walden and George Hunt. Len Dukeman played in the team when I was watching Spurs at that time, and he was always a very sleek sort of character, very skillful, and he used to keep out David Dunmore at the time. David Dunmore I thought was a good player, but Len Dukeman was a player that lived around this area as well after he played, and he came from the Channel Islands. And I thought he was a slightly aristocratic-looking type of man, and I would say that he was one for this group of players that we're looking for. Around the time of Len Dukeman was Les Bennett, who was very much a favourite at this club, and also Sonny Walters, who was a right winger. They were both players that would also be in a group of this nature. Bobby Smith, I think, should be labelled one of the greats for the fact that he did it here for so long, so consistently. He was such a wholehearted player that was far more skillful than he was given credit for. Alfie Stokes was a character, I mean, amongst the players, he was one of the great characters. And in actual fact, his goal scoring record was quite uncanny. He scored 40 goals under Bill Nicholson in 65 league games, which takes some doing. I think that's quite an outstanding record. But there was always stories about Alfie. I mean, he was a character. And he used to have this trick where he used to kid to backheel it and take it on, or backheel it. He was always backheeling the ball. And it was funny that one day that the boot guy there picked his boots out of the corner. They were crusty and they looked horrible. And he's just going to pick these boots up. And he said, "Where are you going with them?" So he said, "I'm going to throw them away. They're finished." He said, "I've got another 40 back heels in those," he said. Terry Dyson was, again, so wholehearted, a lot more skill than people realise, get good crosses in, scored goals from the wide position. And in the Cup Winners' Cup, against Atletico Madrid, he was the star of the show. I mean, they couldn't believe how he wasn't a bigger name. And in actual fact, the players used to joke with him afterwards and said that he should have actually finished after, because he couldn't have followed that, and nobody else could have. He was absolutely magnificent, Terry, and he was a wonderful character as well. And Cliffy Jones, I think, of my time supporting Tottenham, and I think Bill Nick might agree with me, was possibly the best winger that the club had. I thought he was absolutely magnificent. His pace and change of direction, he was always gambling. You never knew where, and you just had to take a chance. And you'd either bring him down, or he'd have to go by you. And of course, he was not a very big guy, and had that thing of getting across defenders consistently, and with powerful headers. I mean, he must have had so many cuts and lines on his face from headers. He must have a face like a middle skate, I would think, at the moment. But he was magnificent. Jimmy Greaves, in actual fact, I played 2 clubs with Jim, and one, my first club at Chelsea, and we had a very young side in there. And I remember, I think I only had 2 or 3 games, and Jimmy had a little Ford Popular, little pale blue one, and he came from Hornchurch, and I was at Dagenham. He picked me up on the way. "Do you want to lift in, son?" You know, so I said, "Oh, lovely, smashing." So he picked me up, and we went to a little restaurant in Gants Hill. He said, "I always stop here for my lunch." He said, "Do you have a bite to eat?" So I said, "Yeah." He said, "What are you having?" I said, "A bit of boiled chicken." So he said, "Good preparation." He said, "What do you want?" He said, "I'll have roast beef, Yorkshire pudding, 3 roast, 2 boiled, and all the stuff, you know." So, sure enough, he did. We played West Brom, we won 5, and he scored 4 goals. I thought, we've all been doing it wrong. The type of goals he scores are absolutely magnificent. The way he would weave and through people. Manchester United was a particular good example here at Tottenham. When he did that again, he beat 3, possibly 4 players, and just casually sort of nearly hitting the back of the net from his pass into the net. But of course, he was one that there's not much more you can say about Jim. I mean, he was a tremendous legend here at Tottenham, and quite rightly so.
Pierce to Venables. And a nice movement, and Greaves is moving on it, and it's hit the post, and it's in! He's done it, this little man again. Always creeps in and takes the half opportunity. And now Pierce, again, found a little bit of room for himself. Trying to go past court. Very good play. It's a goal by Greaves! By Greaves! Alan Mullery. Like England up there, look. Still he goes on, England. Greaves! Oh, Greaves! Jones now for Greaves. He's still there with a chance. And it's there by Greaves.
There's Dugan in England. And that must be it! Jimmy Greaves! Jimmy Greaves got it!
Line well spread out. This is Gilzine. Greaves hanging back, gonna hit it! Oh, what a goal by Jimmy Greaves!
Kinnear back to Pierce again. Low and half Greaves! Oh, what a goal by Greaves!
And Alan Gilzine was an artist type of player. The very slight deft touches of his heading ability, flicks, and the skill that he had. I mean, he was a real craftsman. He was a real type of player. I think youngsters would say, one day I hope I can be like him.
Peters getting there with his hip. Gilzean! Alan Gilzean will finally turn it in. They're very intelligently spreading this game out as wide as they can. Now it's Knowles turning it in. Oh, Gilzean! 2-2! What a goal by Gilzean! Oh. Nabil. He goes for the far post. Cliff Jones is looking for a ball on the far post. That was Gilzean. Perfect little goal, Alan Gilzean. And Knowles is taking it. Chivers and Story having a tremendous scuffle there, and Gilzean has done it. Gilzean has done it.
Martin Chivers had 2 purple years. I mean, I think that he had an injury, which obviously slowed him down to a tremendous extent. But for 2 years, he was absolutely magnificent. He just couldn't stop scoring goals. He was world class, I thought, for 2 years.
Spurs free kick from an interesting position, almost central, a little right of central, some 10 yards outside the area. Peters taking it quickly, Chivers going in. Oh, and a goal by Chivers! Superbly taken by the Spurs. Now they are stopping and looking, and Spurs are attacking a much quicker as Chivers now. Good control by Chivers. And he's done it again! Martin Chivers! Oh, what a goal by Chivers! Oh, what a tremendous goal! Gilzean, a glancing header, and a glancing header too by Chivers. Pratt right up there. Chivers to Peters, and now for Chivers, and a great chance! And that is it! That is it by Martin Chivers. For Tottenham. Chivers played nicely there for Perryman, and first time to Gilzean. Played on beautifully for Chivers. Going on, and a goal is given. Martin Chivers, the scorer. And Chivers, and he's onside. Now this is the chance for Spurs. And Chivers has done it. Peters has gone on the outside again. Beautifully played for him, and he is completely free. Chivers! Oh, a magnificent goal! Superbly created and brilliantly finished by Peters and Chivers between them. A really magnificent Tottenham goal.
And around that time, Chivers was also doing it on the international stage for England.
And Brogan now putting it for Chivers to hammer it, and there it is! Martin Chivers! Old Chivers are going on this one. There was a deflection which wasn't very lucky, and there it is! Martin Chivers, another one!
Crooks and Archibald is one of them rare things that, as soon as they played together, the first game, they had it off. I mean, they were, you know, like used to talk about Johnny Byrne and Jeff Hurst, ham and eggs or something they used to call them. And these two were in that sort of calibre. Sometimes you can work at a partnership, it never happens. It just happens. There's no reason why it shouldn't, but it doesn't. And some reason, the same with this. These two were, for 1 year particularly, they were like unstoppable.
Cross coming from Don McAllister. Crooks is there. Oh, and that's a good goal. What a good goal that was.
Hoddle again. And now trying to release Velia. Hoddle having a marvellous game. And Crooks! Well, he's amazing. Here. Brook played a beautiful ball there for Crooks. Goal! Hoddle onside. A good decision by the linesman. Crooks well onside. Ardeen is up supporting him. Crooks! What an amazing goal, because he ran half the length of the field before he beat Bradshaw. Hoddle. It's come right through to Archibald. There's Ricky Velia again. Played there. Oh! And Archibald!
Played forward early by Hoddle, and then on for Velia, who's got Archibald breaking to his right. with a lot of pace and aggression, and Allen struggling to stay with him. Can he go all the way? He can!
Fashanu, too strong for Maguire. And Brook forward to Archibald. There's a great chance here for Spurs. Superbly taken. Brooks finding Galvin. Still with Galvin. Getting it back there. Archibald!
Clive Allen, I know a little bit about because I've signed Clive on 2 occasions, and then he was here when I came to Tottenham, of course not very long because his contract was up and he went to France. He's as good as a striker of a ball that I've seen, with hardly any backlift, ball even being very close under his feet, which a lot of people can't get him away. He had small feet, and I think he took something like size 6, and he was quite a fair-sized guy. And he used to really power into things and score uncanny goals. I thought he was an excellent goal scorer.
Clive Allen. Oh, off McClellan, let it go! Bromley completely wrong-footed. Clive Allen, I'm sure, will claim it, deflected off McClellan. Ardiles leaving the free kick to Goff, and Lukic has come forward and lost it. Klaassen, and here's Clive Allen. Goal! He's gathered up the crumbs yet again.
A good free kick in there. And a chance! Clive Allen! Floated in towards the near post. Might go anywhere. Richard Goff had a shot and missed it. And a tremendous save! And Allen has scored! A great save in the first place from Lukic. But Clive Allen has again made his presence felt, to the delights of those who come across from Tottenham. Waddle again, good early pressure here from Tottenham. He's turned down, he's got the cross in. Clive Allen!
Chris Waddle, I had just over 1 year with. He never liked playing on a wing. He never really enjoyed it. He liked getting to the wing, and he enjoyed wing positions, but to stay there, he knew that he had to rely on other people to get him the ball. He was a joy to work with because he was always wanting to learn new things. He was a good football brain, and I would think he would lend himself into being standing the game, either as a coach or as a manager. He's that type of boy who people perhaps wouldn't think that, and I never thought it when I saw him play. But he's a very interesting character, and of course, 2 good feet, powerful crosser, and really had everything. He is one of the best players I think I have worked with.
And a good cross by him, and Waddle coming in at the far side. 1-0. Richard Thomas, compromising bit of defence, and a splendid ball now through to Chris Waddle. And a marvellous goal for Tottenham. Waddle. Chris Waddle looking to get to the byline. And he scored! Oh, nicely into the path of Waddle. Oh, and a crashing finish there by Chris Waddle. Waddle again. It's not on. Oh, it is on! A lovely goal by Waddle. Now Waddle again. Oh, what a finish! In those terrible conditions, a memorable goal. Walsh waiting in the middle. Waddle's in there! A thundering header there from Chris Waddle. All Allen now. Waddle beating the referee and beating the keeper too with a great goal.
Paul Stewart didn't start off as well as he'd liked, but he does a lot for the team. I mean, he works hard, he's a strong runner, he frightens the opposition with his pace. And of course, they said he didn't score a lot of goals, but for the amount of games he scored, because he missed a few games last year, he scored 13 league goals, which I didn't think was too bad, and he scored some outstanding efforts, I thought, last year.
Plays the ball through again towards Paul Stewart. It was held up for a minute. An astonishing goal, and Spurs are in the lead. But now Stewart on the break again for Tottenham. Could make it safe for them. Paul Stewart, 2-0. Gascoigne with the free kick. Curled in there. A fine Stewart.
And Gary Lineker, of course, is so well known by not only people in this country but around the world. It's not a point of saying what my opinion is. It's a point of saying it's a fact that he has scored goals at the top level. He's been on the world stage in a World Cup in Mexico. That he didn't even just play there. He was the top scorer in that competition, and no one can take that away from anybody.
Gascoigne with the corner. Played in early towards Lineker. His first goal for Tottenham. In good form at the moment against the Queen's Park Rangers here. Lineker coming up fast. Gascoigne playing his part. Lineker finishes it off. Spurs still leading by 1-0. Lineker close range there, scores his second. Spurs looking really comfortable now, and Lineker looking for the hat-trick.
So my three front men are Martin Chivers, Jimmy Greaves and Cliff Jones.
So the strikers, Jimmy Greaves, just stop and consider for a moment that scoring record of 220 goals in 321 league games. It's phenomenal. And then put the little man alongside Martin Chivers. 8 seasons at White Hart Lane, 118 goals. There's no doubt that this greatest ever Tottenham team wouldn't be short on scoring ability. And there'd be no shortage of dash and danger down the left flank either. No Spurs fan would argue against the choice of Cliff Jones to complete the 3 up front. But now, who gets the goalkeeping spot in this greatest Tottenham team? These are the candidates: Ted Ditchburn, Bill Brown, Pat Jennings and Ray Clements.
Ted Ditchburn was in goal when I first started coming to Tottenham, and he was just incredible. I mean, I was always very keen on outfield players, but he was so good. I think that he just dominated the whole of the team. I mean, I can remember a certain game against Newcastle where I saw 3 or 4 saves in that game when I was only 14, I should think, 12 to 14, which I just couldn't believe, and we were talking about for the next 2 or 3 weeks at school. And in those days, of course, without television, going to the game, you were actually almost a star in your street or your school as the players, because you actually saw the game. It was quite terrific. And Ted Ditchburn was definitely one of my favourites. Bill Brown, just at the back end of his career when I arrived as a player, a good talker, a good communicator to his defence, and a great shot stopper. He is on the crosses was something people said that he wasn't so good on, but I felt that he was very fortunate in this respect because he had such a dominating centre-half in Maurice Norman. He was so big and so capable in and around the 6-yard box that he helped build a lot in that respect, but as a shot stopper he was magnificent. Well, Pat Jennings had these big hands and he was able to really cope well. I mean, you couldn't teach that to anybody because it would just be an unsafe way of keeping goal. It wouldn't be in the manual, so to speak. But he was able to do it. It was one of the things he was able to do well, and of course you could get a slightly longer reach with one hand than you can with 2. And knowing Pat, you knew that it wasn't a flashiness, it was just something that only he was able to do and do well. You just could not possibly tell a youngster to do something like that. It's just one of those things that the greats had.
Royal going for this one and getting up well. Newton going in, ball. Oh, a magnificent save. What a great save by Jennings. Now Bailey. Hit well and saved well. Daly coming in, Farley coming in and saved brilliantly. John Richards with the shot and the deflection, and Pat Jennings is in trouble. No, he's not. There's Hibbett with a shot, and there's Jennings again. Hit towards Bailey on the volley. Oh, and what a save again. Bucker in the long one. Kidd turning it on nicely. Macari in there too. Bobby Charlton. Oh, and a tremendous save by Pat Jennings. Spurs 1 or 2 crises yet to face, I fancy, as Mills plays that one in towards Beattie. The header's there. The header's right there. Beattie. Oh, and somehow Jennings saved it. How on earth did the man do it?
Ray Clements, I felt at the time, was beyond perhaps the best in his career. He had such a illustrious career at Liverpool. and you felt that Tottenham had taken him at a time where perhaps he was past his best. But that was proved to be wrong. I mean, he was such a good, again, communicate with his defenders. He was one of the strong personalities in the team on and off the pitch. And it's very difficult to put a price on strong characters, and wherever they are, and you find they're hard to find these days, captains, where you used to perhaps have 3 or 4. It's hard to get 1 or 2 now, and he was certainly one of the staunch characters behind the Tottenham team.
Lee drives it, and brilliant reactions from Clements. Rush. Dalglish against O'Reilly. Splendid turn. Clements in the way again, but Rush and still Clements. Tottenham stay alive, thanks to the goalkeeper who graced this ground for so many years. First here from Dalglish, and then Rush surely thought he was adding to his tally, but Clements was there again. And here's Sharp, and now King. Clements out quickly, and Sharp following in, put it wide. Neil trying to get things going again. Nicol for Neil. This could be more trouble now. Saved superbly by Clements. To good effect now. Regis leading the charge. 4 up, 3 back for Tottenham. Mickey Jim going through. And a great save by Clements. Saved in the end by Mabbott.
In all fairness, I would go for Ted Ditchburn. I know that's going to be very unpopular because Pat, as a bloke and as a goalkeeper, was fantastic. But I'm going to go for that, and I know it's not a very popular choice, I know. And Pat, please forgive me.
So, Ted Ditchburn edges out Pat Jennings. Ted, a hero in those immediate post-war years, over 400 games for Spurs. He helped them out of the 2nd Division and to the 1st Division Championship. Now the contenders for the 2 central defenders. Arthur Rowe, who also became manager, Maurice Norman, Dave Mackay, Phil Beale, Mike England, Graham Roberts, Richard Gough and Gary Mabbott.
Arthur Rowe, I never saw play. I spoke to Bill Nicholson at some length about the players and what I was doing here. And we spoke about Arthur Rowe, and he said that he thought he was a very dependable, very good centre-half. He certainly speaks very well of Arthur Rowe, and it's a shame I can't really add a little more because I never saw the man play. I saw Maurice Norman play. I thought he was a tower of strength, and I thought he certainly helped the goalkeeper, like I said, Bill Brown, in lots of aspects in the air. He was always consistent. He was quite quick for a big man. He was good in the air. He was solid. And I think that there's no doubt he should be one of the front runners for central defenders. Dave Mackay, for me, was one of the most charismatic characters, and characters full stop, that I've ever known in the game. He was a great player. He was talked about as a rugged, tough midfield player, but I thought he was definitely one of the best one-touch players that I'd seen. There are great stories about Dave. I mean, he would throw the ball to the opposition as he went out in the field and say, "Go and have a kick now because you're not going to get one when the game starts," you know, and all that stuff. And then we used to play in the gym, and Eddie Bailey was the coach then, and he used to give us all a ball each, and there would be lines, coloured lines. There'd be a yellow line, red line, blue, and we'd all have a ball at our feet, and Eddie Bailey would say, "Right now," and I'm sure he used to make it up as he went along, he'd say, "I want you to chip the ball against the blue line, and as it come up, catch on your thigh and bounce it up on the red line, and then volley it against the yellow one, and as it come up, bump it up on your chest, on your head, volley it up against the white line, and as it come back, kill it dead," you know. And we'd all look and say, "Yeah, terrific, Ed, you know, good." And then Dave, you say, "Hold on a minute," and he'd go, "Chip, thigh, volley, back, on the chest, on the head, volley it back on the white line, kill it stone dead." Do you mean that, Ed?
Dave Mackay in that famous number 6 shirt for Spurs, a shirt which he also wore in the final chapter of his career at Derby.
Mackay with a shot. Whoa, and that went in like a rocket. Dave Mackay. Willie Carley, number 8's over the ball. Now it's Mackay. Right through the gap. Oh, dear, 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 dear. Dave
Mackay.
Phil Bill was very solid. He got in the team something like 18 years of age, and he played all his career. He was Mr. Reliable. He was always solid. He was didn't get many injuries, and his passing was good. He was one of the best man-to-man markers because his concentration was so good. I mean, people like when he played against Jimmy Greaves and the Dennis Laws didn't really like playing against Phil because he's such a dogged character that would concentrate on snuffing that person out of the game. Never a really big name, but always a big name for the Spurs supporters. Graham Roberts came from Weymouth, and it was sort of not a very fashionable side he came from. Didn't know anything about them, but he hit the team very early, and he wasn't a very big man, but he had that ability to challenge with the big men and go right through them, going for the ball, and without. I'm not talking about kicking people. I'm not saying that he's adverse to actually getting a tackle in, but I'm talking from his heading point of view. Also a good footballer. His passing was good, his short passing game, long passing game, another terrific character.
Here's Connell on the edge of the penalty area, floated to the far side there, and then again! And Roberts. Well, they didn't miss Glenn Hoddle. A big cup, a beautiful smile, and Spurs have won the UEFA Cup.
Mike England actually signed for Tottenham at the same time as myself. He had a great career at Blackburn. He was still very young, and he came for somewhat of a record fee, if I remember. Very skillful, big guy. I mean, Mike was 6'2", 6'3", excellent in the air. Good footballer on the ground. He could, and again, good scorer of goals. Good in both penalty boxes. I think that was Mike's great strength, was the mere fact that he was so dominant in his own area. And when he went up to, I mean, in fact, he played for Tottenham several times at centre forward and did well and scored goals for him. But there's no doubt his best position was centre half.
Mike England up there, look.
Still he goes on, England. Greaves! Oh, Greaves!
There's Dogan in England. And that must be it! Jimmy Greaves! But Mike England made it!
Chivers in the 6-yard area. England going up again. Peters and Gilzine, both very fine headers of the ball, but Pearce with the corner and England the goal.
We must mention Richard Gough and Gary Mabbutt. I think both of them have been good servants. Richard Gough, an outstanding player, perhaps wasn't here long enough for us to really know how good and how capable he was, but he was certainly, he just left actually before I come here as manager, and I heard lots of good things about him, both as a player and as a character, and someone I think the players were sorry to lose. I think the players looked to him as a strong character in the club, and I think that was a shame that obviously that he left. And also Gary, who's been a good servant to the club. He's played, I think he's told me, every position except in goal for the team, which really weighs him up, that is the sort of character he is.
Hoddle with the free kick. Gough is in there, Mabbutt is in there! And Spurs are back in the lead!
I will actually go for Mike England, and alongside him I'll go for Dave Mackay. And I would make Dave Mackay the captain of the team.
Mike England then, the big Welshman who had 8 seasons at White Hart Lane and 300 league games for the club, alongside the legendary Dave Mackay. Dave Mackay, best known in those days as a brave, rampaging but incredibly skillful left half. Terry wanted him in the side, though, as a partner to Mike England. Next, it's the right-back position in this greatest Tottenham team. Here are the candidates: Alf Ramsey, Peter Baker, Joe Kinnear and Steve Perryman.
Sir Alf Ramsey, I remember seeing I was in the far side of the ground where they used to have the youngsters' enclosure, and I remember him scoring a penalty, and he hit the underside of the bar and crashed in, and I thought, boy, that's the way to take a penalty. And he had a great game, and of course he was a great player.
And Alf Ramsey is quick to clear.
He was unrivalled at that time, both as a captain, an international, and as a Spurs player. I think Peter Baker, like Ron Emery, were two of the underrated players in the team. The great double side was just a beautiful team to watch. I thought Peter Baker was a strong man, a simple player, but consistent, and like Ron, both very consistent. They were able to make them, I think, very much along, again with Maurice Norman, that back three that they used to play. One of the reasons that they had a consistent foundation to becoming a double winning team. Joe Kinnear, of course, played on the same side as I did. Joe was a very bubbly character, and he played actually a fairly, I would think, a more quieter style. He didn't quite portray his character. Joe was a funny, good sense of humour, and good to have in the dressing room. And I always remember him being, I felt, the star of the team when we won the cup in 66-67 cup final that I played in with Joe. I thought he was the best player on the field. He had an outstanding game getting forward. Steve Perriman, who was a young lad when I just before he got into the team just before I left, and he was a midfield player, very industrious. Again, got a very strong character. Proved to be a great captain for Tottenham in later years, and became Footballer of the Year. And I always felt he was a good midfield player, but I felt when he played at the back, even though he lacked inches, or at right back, I thought he was a very stabilising and an inspirational player for the team. He's also done well from the back position, coming forward, scoring goals, important goals.
Perriman. Evans. Good cross there by Evans, clipped nicely there, and Perriman following it in. Chivers with a 1-2, Perriman! Yes! Beautifully played by Spurs. There could hardly be a better example of a 1-2 than that. The goal will do wonders for this game now. As Knowles takes another corner for Tottenham, it's a deeper one this time towards Mike England. Perriman in there! And what a good goal it is! Stevie Perriman, a brilliant goal for Tottenham. And now Perriman can bring it away for Tottenham. Hay is after him, but that's a good ball by Perriman. Nicely into the path there of John Duncan, who's got Jones in the middle, but problems with Sparrow. Still got it across though. Now can Jones turn? It's played for Perriman! Yes, and Tottenham have scored! Jimmy Neighbour. Again trying to get round Cooper, and does so. Oh yes! Perriman! A beautiful goal for Tottenham!
I thought he was a terrific influence as a player, perhaps even more so as a captain and as a personality amongst that Tottenham side that did so well in the cup finals, FA Cup finals around that time. But through the four of them, I think I would come to pick Sir Alf Ramsey. A, because I think he was the best right back of the group, and B, because he never picked me much for England. I'm not trying to get around me in case he ever comes back.
So, Alf Ramsey, 5 great years at Tottenham just after the war, a valuable member of the push-and-run team under Arthur Rowe. Alf, later Sir Alf, gets the right-back spot. Now we move to the candidates for left-back: Ron Henry, Cyril Knowles and Chris Hughton.
I've mentioned Ron Henry because, again, he had a tremendous left foot. And one of my favourite players, funny enough, was Mel Hopkins, who didn't get in the team very much. And at that time, I used to be a little sad about that because he was one that I particularly liked. But I think that the mere fact that he couldn't get in must make Ron Henry, as a strange logic, but must make him a very good player. And as I've said, an underrated player, terrific left foot, and a great tackler. Cyril Knowles was another, like Joe Kinnear, bright character. Had a very high-pitched laugh, and he's a good guy to have around the club. He was a good passer of the ball. He was an aggressive tackler, and I think that really he was an outstanding player.
Knowles again with a chance to lift it once more. Peters waiting at that far side, getting it in! Martin Peters! And they're very intelligently spreading this game out as wide as they can. Now it's Knowles turning it in. Oh, Gilzean! 2-2! What a goal by Gilzean! Scullion, this is a chance now for Sheffield United, still with Scullion, and now with Dearden. And Knowles, as cool as you like, not only saves it on the line and thinks about it, then plays it straight across Scullion and away to safety. 21 yards out, Knowles going to have a dip. Yes, he is, and it's in the net. Cyril Knowles, 3-0.
Chris Hughton, I think, has always been. We keep talking about fullbacks. I don't know whether it's a Tottenham trait, but we're talking about unsung heroes, and he certainly has been one of those. He's hard to go by, looks after himself. Even today, he's a very quick, lean player. He's been very unlucky with injuries, and doesn't give the ball away very much. And I think that Chris has done a terrific job, and I think he's always done himself proud, and his club. I think I'd go for Chris Hughton and Henry as consistently good players for their team, but I think Cyril Knowles was capable of actually being an exceptionally good attacking and defending left back. So I would just give Cyril Knowles the edge in that position.
Cyril Knowles then, he's the left back, 11 years, 400 league games for Spurs, and as the fans all used to say, nice one, Cyril. Now the midfield selections, and what a choice for this greatest ever Tottenham team. Bill Nicholson, Ron Burgess, Eddie Bailey, Tommy Harmer, Harmer the Charmer, Johnny Brooks, the great Danny Blanchflower, and John White. And then, moving a little nearer the present day, Alan Mullery, Martin Peters, the couple from Argentina, Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa. Naturally enough, Glenn Hoddle, and right up to date, Paul Gascoigne.
Bill Nicholson, I would say, I saw him when I was a youngster. I don't remember very much about him. I know he was, like as a person, very reliable and honest, and he was a good player. And I think it's fair to say he was more Tottenham, and has been more Tottenham over the years, than possibly anyone. I mean, he actually lived around the corner from a very early age and never moved from there, still lives there now. And I think we all know enough about Bill. Now, Ron Burgess, Bill Nick says, is the best midfield player that's been at this club. Play him at the back, play him in the middle, it'd be great. And then play him at centre forward. The sort of stories you used to hear about legends, you know, like Duncan Edwards, I'd heard, you know, in a similar fashion. But Ron Burgess, obviously, with that statement from Bill, he's got to be well in the reckoning. Eddie Bailey, again, Bill Nicholson said he was the best one-touch player he's ever seen. No one could ever tackle him. He's always gone before they could get there. And one-touch is something that is a high skill. I mean, people talk about Brazilians. They say they get the illusion that they're great. They do terrific tricks and that, but they play the ball one touch. And then when they need to, they have got these tricks up their sleeve, but they don't offer them up too quickly. That is one of the great skills in the game, is to pass the ball with one touch. And again, Bill says that Eddie was the best at that. Tommy Harmer was, he was a great player, and people felt he was a bit lightweight, but it didn't matter.
Outside left, Cliff Jones, pass to Harmer, and the pint-sized magician calmly scored.
Johnny Brooks was, I've talked about favourites. In actual fact, Johnny Brooks had 3 caps. Played against Yugoslavia, Wales, and Denmark. And I know that because, without even checking it, because I was a Johnny Brooks fan. Danny Blanchflower, you always got the feeling when Danny played, it was like he had it all worked out, and he was like a professor playing football. His passing and the weight of the passing, and it was like an aristocrat. He didn't actually look like he should have been a footballer. He looked like he was really out of some different world, out of some the Squire magazine or something. And of course, he played like that, and he was like that. He was obviously a very bright, intelligent man, and went on to be a great sports journalist. John White, I thought, was an excellent player, a player that I played against. So I found him one of the most difficult players to play against, because he was always moving, the ball was never there. Again, a very simple player, knock it off, and not always appreciated, I think, by the crowd, because They like to see clever things being done, and he did it so simple. The ball was gone, and he was also. Bill Nicholson said he fancied this player. He saw him in Scotland, and then he heard he was quite a great long distance runner, a marathon runner. So that sort of clinched it, and he was. I mean, by the end of the game, he just couldn't stay with him, and he was a tremendous runner. And of course, got tragically killed, struck by lightning, and we never really knew how good the man would be, which was obviously a terrible shame. Alan Mallory was a great, boisterous personality. He was also a very solid character, very honest footballer. He was very strong, but never a dirty tackle. Very powerful man. I mean, I think that Alan was powerful both in his running and his tackling, his shooting. Even his short passes were powerful.
The penalty area absolutely packed now with Crystal Palace players, and Spurs are going to find it difficult. There's Chivers putting it across. Mullery's got in, and he's putting it against the crossbar. Steve Perryman. Gilzine to touch it off now for Mullery to drive it. Oh, a fine goal by Mullery. Gilzine. Flick through there, and will it go? No, it won't. Perryman again, playing with Crystal Palace, and Mullery to really hammer that one. They toyed with Crystal Palace once, twice and again, and then out it came to Mullery. A fine goal for Tottenham and their third. And when Mullery hits them, they really stay hit.
Martin Peters, perhaps his best years at West Ham, but also did a terrific job here at Tottenham and went on to Norwich. And they used to call him the Duke because he looked like, you know, the Duke of Kent. He used to but I would say one of the best finishers from midfield that I'd seen. I think the way he came in from deep positions, volleys, either foot, mainly right, but excellent in the air. And his timing is something you can't put into people. He just had that of his own volition. I thought he was an excellent player.
Again, Spurs beginning to dictate it. Knowles this time looking for Gilzine. Gilzine with his head, and Peters, and that's the goal. And one that counts from Martin Peters with 20 minutes gone. Beautifully nodded down for him. Cyril Knowles. Chivers looking to make a run towards it, but in fact it's Perryman now. Pearce, Knowles again with a chance to lift it once more. Peters waiting at that far side, getting it in! Martin Peters! 2-1! Well, that really does open it up again. Chivers up well. Martin Peters! Oh, what a great save! Gilzine taking a bit of a buffeting there. Peters! Oh my goodness, just over that Crystal Palace crossbar with a really tremendous shot by Peters. All straight at Peters, and now Chivers. Can he burst on this one? Still with Chivers, and a flick on Peters. Yes, it's a goal! 2-1. Martin Peters the scorer.
Ossie Ardiles, I think, will go down as one of the Tottenham greats. Ossie was one of the best close dribblers and controllers of the ball I'd seen. It was a shame he wasn't able to score more goals, but he often used to set people up for that. And a very strong little fellow. I mean, he would screen the ball and hold people off with his left arm, and a skill that they develop in a lot of South American countries. And I think that he was very, very good for Glenn Hoddle. I thought he'd free Glenn Hoddle with his passing and eliminate people out of the game with his passing to him, and a great player for Tottenham.
Galvin to Crooks. A little burst through from Ardiles. Here's a chance, Ossie Ardiles. And he's made it. Well, Brighton have paid the penalty.
To Bowen. And perhaps Roberts can strike one here. And Ardiles can. And Ardiles!
And I think one of the things that helped Ossie settle down was, of course, having his great pal Ricky Villa with him. He wasn't a great success early on. I think Ossie did better at the beginning, but he did and he was capable of incredible things, individualistic things, you know. And for a big man, he had fast feet, and he could take people on, and nothing greater to explain that than that great goal that we saw him score against Manchester City, which must go down as one of the all-time great goals for this club.
Ardiles. All good play by Ardiles. Hurdling one challenge after another, getting a break. Archibald, save, Villa! Crooks is up ahead, but he might be offside. And that maybe was why Galvin was reluctant to release it. Now he can find Villa. And he can really stab them. Going all the way. And Villa! 3-2 to Tottenham. 2 goals in the game for Villa. And Spurs are back in the lead.
Lots of things have been said about Glenn Hoddle. Lots of good things. Lots of derogatory things. Lots of things that he couldn't do. I could never understand that. I thought he was possibly, as a talent, 1 touch, 2 touch, 100 touches, whatever you want to call it. I thought he was extremely, extremely talented. I mean, he had feet like hands. I always thought he could just bring the ball down and put it where he wanted, like it was a hand. It was just like uncanny the way he could do that. And he was in positions where 3 were around him. That's it, can't get out of it, he was out of it. Platini, I always say, was very much like Glenn, super player. He couldn't tackle back. He couldn't do all the things that they said Glenn couldn't do. In fact, I should think Glenn could do it a lot better. Because he was so aware of his criticism that he always wanted to prove to people and fight against that sort of criticism, so much that I think he spent too much time worrying about it. And I think it just took away from his game, because I believe that you should get the best out of people, both in life or whatever you're doing, and especially in football. I think we should get the best out of people, and to get the best out of him wasn't heading balls off his own goal line. I've always felt a little bit sad because I didn't think that he deserved some of those criticisms he got.
Duncan there, and in for Suarez. Needs a lob from Hoddle. He did tremendously well, Glenn Hoddle. Glenn Hoddle in his first regular match for the side.
High towards Colin Lee, won it well in the air. Oh, and a big goal by Hoddle. Duncan making a run towards the near post. They're all in there. Oh, and Hoddle has done it again.
Taylor and Hoddle. Trying to chip it straight in, and he did! It's 3-3! Hoddle!
Ricky Villa again. That's a good ball played for Hoddle. And a beautiful goal by Hoddle. Yoreth. Hoddle letting it run there, taking it back from Armstrong. A beautiful move. Oh, a magnificent goal. Hoddle. Alexic. Mary Lloyd underneath this one, but beaten in the air by Jones. Armstrong's coming in there. Oh, a tremendous goal by Hoddle. 1-0 to Tottenham with a little under 3 minutes gone. A tremendous goal there by Hoddle. And Shilton really had no chance whatsoever. The long ball really, with Lloyd in a bit of trouble under pressure from Jerry Armstrong. And how invitingly that ball fell for Hoddle. And what a shot. And here's Hoddle again. And he's done it again! Hoddle behind it and Waddle too. And it'll be a dip by Hoddle. Brilliant goal! Now Spurs, for sure, are in the semi-finals. Goff again there. Maybe Spurs now. It's 4 against 3 now for Tottenham. And Hoddle's going through on his own. Oh, and it's in, a superb goal by Hoddle. salutes the crowd. He gets applause from his manager and the bench and from the Tottenham fans as well. A moment of true mastery.
What better ending that he showed us. I mean, it was quite theatrical. I mean, again, if you wrote this in a book, they say, so don't please, like, no one's going to believe that. There he was, going the length of the field, going past one defender, going past another, and of course, inevitably, putting it in the back of the net and saying, thanks for everything. And that was fitting, and I'm glad that's the way it ended for him, because I thought that he was, and he should be, one of the legends of this club. Now, with Paul Gascoigne, it's a little bit unfair, and this is why it's very difficult for the modern-day players of any of the teams in the country, is that they're in the middle or the beginning of their careers. All the other players that we've spoke about, we're looking back on. And if I was doing this in 5 years' time, I'm sure, like hopefully Gary Lineker, we would be saying these two players would be in the reckoning highly and be perhaps in this team. But being as there's such a short time behind them, I think it wouldn't be fair, and it's not really possible to actually consider them.
Walsh. Well, that's what Tottenham need. Someone to try the difficult thing and hope it might come off, and it has for Gascoigne. But really, Walsh takes a great deal of the credit. Fenwick got it to Gascoigne, and Tottenham are level.
After all those great midfield, I've just got to pick three, which is, it really is, it's difficult. I'm definitely going to go for Ronnie Burgess, because the fact that if Bill Nick says he was better than Mackay, he's got to be in. I mean, he is, without a doubt, he's on the left. And then I'm going to go for Glenn Hoddle in the centre to direct operations. And then I'm going to go for Danny Blanchflower on the right.
So Ron Burgess, Spurs fans of the 40s rate him the greatest. 7 years at White Hart Lane after the war, and a First Division Championship medal, just one of his rewards. And Glenn Hoddle, has there ever been a more popular player to wear the Tottenham shirt? His passing had such vision, his shooting had such venom, memories are with every Spurs fan. And Danny Blanchflower, elegant, articulate inspiration for the great Spurs double side of 1961. He and Bill Nicholson got the ball rolling for Spurs in Europe. So this then is Terry Venables' greatest ever Tottenham team. Ditchburn in goal. A back four of Ramsey, England, Mackay and Knowles. In the midfield, Blanchflower, Hoddle and Burgess. And then up front, Greaves, Chivers and Jones. You just try and get a ticket to watch them in action. The queue would stretch a mile down Tottenham High Road. And Terry is also allowed 5 substitutes.
Well, I feel bad about this goalkeeping situation. I'm going to have restless nights about this, but I must say, if people can't remember Ted Ditchburn, they must remember they can't really argue with me. But I want to make it up to Pat, so I want him to be all 6 subs. I think that's the only way I think we can get around this. But I'm definitely starting with Pat Jennings, and then I'm going to go to Steve Perriman, because of the fact that he can play in other positions as well, and the strength of character that he was. Alan Gilzean, tight between Alan Gilzean and Archie Ball, but I'm going to go for Gilzean. Bobby Smith and Chris Waddle.
So those are the 5 substitutes, but the greatest ever Tottenham team also calls for their greatest ever manager.
At this club, I think nobody can possibly disagree with the person that's been most influential, and of course there's been Arthur Rowe before, but Bill Nicholson, of course, I think without a shadow of a doubt, must take the #1 spot.
So just take one more glance at Terry's greatest ever Tottenham Hotspur team. The memories, no doubt, will come flooding back, and with them, the arguments too.